Well, I didn't know that was coming this morning. Greg taking a shot at me in my own house. How about that? I first want to thank Greg for the tremendous job they do as leaders of this organization. You know, you can't compare any other conference to the SEC. It's really hard to when you think of the job that Greg Sankey and his staff do. We get to visit with those guys annually down in Destin, and their leadership is just impeccable. When you think about Steve Shaw and the job he does, I know you guys just heard from Steve. He does a tremendous job for our conference, and I got a lot of respect for those guys. I'd also like to take this opportunity to recognize that this is the 150th season of college football. And when you think about that, you think about the impact that college football has had on the lives of student athletes. I think that's pretty incredible. I certainly think it's impacted my life, impacted a lot of kids that have been able to get educations through those 150 years. Pretty tremendous when you think about it. Also, the 5th birthday of the SEC network. I think that changed the face and the exposure of the SEC. I think the teams in the SEC are now able to go out and recruit nationally because of the SEC network, and it's been pretty remarkable to have those two things in the same year. So this is a special year for the SEC and college football both, but it's also a special year in Athens, Georgia, as we're naming our field for Vince Dooley, who served as our head coach for 25 years, athletic director for 25 years. He's a legend in the history of college football and had a significant impact on the SEC as well. And it's a special year for us in Athens since we're doing that, and he's meant a lot to both my wife and myself in our careers. You know, confidence. Confidence is a word I think about a lot this time of year. Confidence is not about speak, about words. It's really about actions taken by someone. It's not given to anyone, it's earned. And that's something that we want to do with each and every year and how we build up the season. It's year 4 for our staff and our program. That fact excites me that it's year 4 for us. I feel like we've made great strides in each season in the way we teach, in the way we learn, in the way we develop players. It's been tremendous for us to grow. You don't have to have experience to excel, but it is an invaluable teacher. I came into this job after working in many different environments. Those each gave me good perspective, but I also acknowledge that the last 3.5 years have been a great teacher as well. And those last 3.5 years have been a tremendous experience for me. I'm grateful day in and day out for the players and staff we've been able to have at the University of Georgia, whether it's Roquan Smith, Sony Michel, Mel Tucker, guys that have been in our organization and gone on to do bigger and better things. They have helped put our program where it is. You know, their contribution can't be overstated. UGA is a special place, both athletically and academically. One of the themes our players have adopted this year has been to do more. It's a great theme because it's simple. We like it because we understand how close we've been to taking the next step. And although 24-5 the last 2 seasons is good, it's not good enough. It's not where we expect to be at the University of Georgia. Our mission is to bridge that gap. You know, by the actions we take, hence the word do more, those words require action. You know, and I heard a quote coming in here. I read a quote coming in this morning that really grabbed me, and I'm not a big quote guy, but when I heard this quote, I thought that's something that our players can relate to. Life has no remote. You've got to get up and change it yourself. And if you think about that, so many of us want to take the easy way out, whether it's changing the channel with a remote or anything else, not doing the work that has to be done. We want to do more at the University of Georgia. We're not complacent in what we've done, and we know we need to take that next step. And for us, pressure is a reflection of ambition. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves day in and day out. The stress and pressure we feel emanates from our building, from our coaches, from our players putting it on each other, from our university. We apply it every day. We're always looking for the aggregate of marginal gains. And I want to explain that simply like we have to our players. We take a situation like the PGA Tour and look at 2017 in the PGA Tour, and we say, here's Brooks Koepka and here's Justin Thomas. These two guys were 0.5 strokes apart, meaning they were half a stroke difference in their play over 86 rounds. So that's that much difference between each one. Their earnings that year, $5 million difference, which is pretty significant. It's a lot of money. But we're looking for the aggregate of marginal gain. So if we can get a little bit of a marginal gain through our nutrition, through our weightlifting, through our film study, through our effort on and off the field, through our dedication to our community, whatever our edge can be, we're looking for that aggregate of marginal gains, and that comes in every facet, every way possible for our program. I got 3 guys with me today. This is the first time I feel like I've had these kids for a longer amount of time, being that I'm coming into my 4th season. J.R. Reed is a guy that's a repeat visitor. He decided to come back. He's also a product of a transfer, which has been a lot of topic of conversation. He's a kid that's come in our program and really been a great leader, been a starter. He does things the right way. He commands respect of the other players, and he's been an asset to our program. And his sister, ironically, is also a student athlete at Texas A&M, a track athlete. The next one, Andrew Thomas, one of the first guys we were able to identify and recruit early on. He's a communications major. He's actually a sports management major. J.R. Reed is a communications major, but Andrew Thomas is a sports management major that is coming into his junior season. He started every game that he's been at the University of Georgia. He's a tremendous leader, a person, charismatic. Doesn't say a whole lot all the time. That's why it's fun to bring him to this event. I told him today as we got off the plane, Andrew, you're going to have to talk today. And I think he's excited to do that. Jake Fromm, who we all know has been a tremendous asset for the University of Georgia. He leads the right way. He does everything the right way. He does everything you ask him to do. He enjoys the game of football. He plays the game of football the way it should be played. When you go out to practice every day, this guy's got a smile on his face. He's competing. He's challenging people. He challenges me day in and day out. I know defensively we try to stop him, and he does a tremendous job. He's in our Terry College of Business. He's a finance major. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
All right, thank you, Coach. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Again, we ask you to stand, give your name and affiliation before the question. So we'll start up here, Coach, over on our left in the front row.
Hey, Coach. Steve Moulton, WZZN 97.7 The Zone out of Huntsville. The loss of Mel Tucker, especially on your staff, if you could also speak to losing your offensive coordinator as well. How are things going to be different with different coordinators, both on offense and defense?
Well, I think anytime you build the infrastructure in a program, when people leave, as long as you're not changing that infrastructure, it doesn't create a lot of doubt or anxiety in the players. And certainly from my perspective, I'm very comfortable after being in our system for 3 years that we've got really good coordinators. James, our offensive coordinator, has been with us for a long time. I've known James since his graduate assistant days back at LSU. So I have a tremendous respect for him. I know the offenses he's worked with in the past, and he's also been a part of ours. And he's been a very integral part of that offense. So there won't be a lot of change. It'll be more about what our players can do than what our coaches do. And from a defensive standpoint, Dan Lanning and Glenn Schumann are very bright. You know, Mel was a really good teacher to them. Mel helped them tremendously grow. He gave them opportunities to grow, to get in front of the defense so that we could see them interact. And I'm still going to be involved defensively. That makes me feel comfortable with Dan and Glenn and Charlton Warren and Trey Scott to do a tremendous job there.
Coach, we'll go all the way to the back right in front of me, back section.
Sam Blum with AL.com. I'm curious kind of how you were able to get a guy like George Pickens. I know he'd been committed to Auburn for a long time, and what he might mean for your program.
Yeah, we're excited to have George. He's come in this summer and worked tremendously hard. He's been there from day one, grinding with our guys. He was a kid we recruited throughout the entire process. Thought that he came over to our place for several football games. He knew what he wanted. He knew what style of offense he wanted to play in. He saw an opportunity when he saw 2 guys declare early for the draft, and Miko and Riley and Terry Godwin leave, and then Isaac Nada leaves. There's a lot of touches there available, and I know he wanted to have an opportunity to play with a quarterback like Jake Fromm, and we're excited to have him. We're looking forward to seeing him work and earn his opportunities.
Hey, Coach, we'll go over here on the right aisle.
Ronner Saban with AL.com. Given the fact that the Maurice Smith situation happened 3 years ago, are you surprised at how much the transfer landscape has changed, and do you think that situation got the conversation going?
Well, I think Maurice's situation was maybe a little different than just transfer landscape. I mean, he was a graduate transfer, which I support when a young man graduates from a university, that he should have the opportunity to go play and play anywhere in the country that they're willing to allow him to play, and they need him to play. And I thought that was a good situation for Mo. If you look at the overall picture of Mo Smith's situation, he was able to come in, be voted a captain, a leader, start every game and play where he may not have been afforded that opportunity where he was. So I think that's a very beneficial thing, and I do think it's been more prevalent, obviously, mostly at maybe a position of quarterback than other positions, but it's given a kid that gets his education, gets his degree, which I think is a tremendous ability to do that's tough. You go get your college degree and you get it in a window where you still have eligibility left, you should be afforded the opportunity to go play.
Coach, we'll go back here to this middle section, about 5 rows back.
Hey, Coach, Gentry Estes, Louisville Courier-Journal. Given the success you were a part of at Alabama, how important has it been for you in taking the Georgia job to feel like you'd be going to a school that was willing and able to compete financially at the highest level? And do you believe Georgia has stepped up its efforts in that area to do more, as you said?
Yeah, I certainly think so. I think anytime you take over a program that's one of the top 5 jobs in college football, they're going to answer the bell for your needs and the things you need to be able to compete at the highest level. And when you're in the SEC, you better be able to compete at the highest level. That's across the line of scrimmage. That's in the administration buildings. That's in what you can do for student athletes. And we've been able to do that since my arrival, and it's been a tremendous relationship between the athletic director and the president both.
Coach, we'll go back to our left side. Bob, behind you.
Hey, Kirby. Bob Holt, Arkansas Democrat. I had a two-parter. Talk about I think there could be up to 5 grad transfer starting quarterbacks in the SEC this year. And you obviously lost a great quarterback, not a grad transfer, but transfer. How do you feel? Do you see that trend continuing? How do you feel about that? And then the second part is, losing Jim Chaney to Tennessee, a team within your division that you play every year. How do you feel about that? And the fact he obviously knows your personnel, knows what you guys do. How does that impact that game when you play Tennessee?
I'll try to remember both those. But the first being the quarterback, I think it's unique that you would have 5 graduate transfer quarterbacks possibly starting in our conference. And it's also a really good year of the quarterback in the SEC. It just seems, in my experience, having been in the SEC for a lot of years, whether as a coach or a player, I don't know that there's been a year where there's been so many quarterbacks that have the experience they have. Now, some of them may not have the experience at that university, but they have experience. That's usually not a good sign for defensive coordinators in our conference, because I've been through that as a defensive coordinator where everybody's got a good quarterback. It makes it really tough because that position determines a lot of the outcomes of games. That's your leader and the guy that touches the ball every down. As far as Jim did a tremendous job for us. I got a great relationship with him. He worked really hard at our place. He helped us develop to where we are, and we wish him nothing but the best. I know he's going to one of our rivals, and we understand that and respect that. The fact he knows our personnel, I think that the game of football boils down to football players making plays, and there's not going to be anything that Jim Chaney or myself can do out there on that field that our players aren't going to control.
Okay, we'll go to the middle section alongside the right aisle in the back.